If you'd told me a few years ago that the best comics-based TV show right now was going to come not out of the MCU, but out of a spin-off of a DC movie with a character based on a Charlton Comics creation, I'd have said that you were out of your mind. But here we are, and James Gunn and John Cena's Peacemaker is not just good because of its legendary opening sequence, but because, goddamn, it's a pitch-perfect action dark comedy that knows its source material better than the scant source material. I'm Dan Umpton, and this is the Doomcast. Alright, first things first, this channel doesn't suck, so do me a favor, subscribe, hit the bell, thanks, all of that. If you missed James Gunn's Suicide Squad, that's fine because many of us did due to COVID. It was surprisingly good, if not silly, and it was set in a DC that is not entirely too dark. And what that film did was make DC light and fun even with dark characters, which is what consistently makes DC a success whenever it is a success. That said, Peacemaker is not even originally a DC character. Peacemaker is a character that was created for Charlton Comics in 1966 by Joe Gill and Pat Boyette. Initially a straightforward, jingoistic character, he was notionally a pacifist who used non-lethal weapons to take out caricatures of communists. And while the comedian from The Watchmen is based on the mid-80s afterwards, that Peacemaker was acquired by DC around the same time as The Watchmen. And if you've watched this channel, you know that those two things are very connected. Anyway, the character began to resemble a more conflicted version of Peacemaker, but by no means was Peacemaker widely used or utilized in comics. Even recently, Grant Morrison included him and other Charlton characters in his Pax Americana story in Multiversity. In fact, the original Peacemaker was a diplomat, not a dude that lived in a trailer park. But just the same, James Gunn took those comic book roots and made Peacemaker an entirely less serious character while a walking critique of the very thing he was originally created to represent. And it was fabulously effective in Suicide Squad, but still kinda scary in its own way. You know how people idolize the Joker and Tyler Durden because they're intriguing but awful people? Exactly. Peacemaker, though, in the show is clearly much more satirical and a character who is set up as having an arc of redemption and self-reflection. That said, the waters into which Chris Smith stares are not too terribly deep. His only friends are an incredibly loyal eagle named Eagly and a violent sociopath named Vigilante, who is genuinely not a good person, but also aware enough to know that. And he doesn't really like racists, so, you know. Peacemaker's also sort of made friends with some of the rest of his new team. To that end, his new team is not Task Force X, aka the Suicide Squad. It includes a host of characters that do not exist in comics, but honestly should now. Leota Adebayo is especially fun as the daughter of Amanda Waller, a really chill, goofy super spy. I'm honestly enjoying that. Clemson Mern, John Economos, and Amelia Harcourt are all great misfit sitcom characters, but as a comic actor, John Cena especially surprisingly stands out, given that that's not really how he started at all. I love Steve Agee from way back with the Sarah Silverman program and everything, but John Cena is genuinely dropping the funniest lines. He's entirely self-aware with a solid sense of timing and delivery along with stunt and fight and choreography skills to really sell it. It might just be the role, but Chris Smith is essentially a loser whose dad is a Klan leader and an arch-conservative who got himself mixed up in a universe of superpowered people that he has no business being a part of, and Cena's perfect for that. The task force is after people possessed by alien insects called butterflies, and the first one he meets absolutely mops the floor with him before he annihilates her with a sonic boom from his helmet, and his helmet doesn't do that in comics, as I recall. Searching for more, quote, hard-bodied sluts, his words not mine, they end up murdering, no other word for it, a family of people taken over by these butterflies. And while the main story feels less important than the comedy and action, that's really working for me. Cena and Leota feel the most fully imagined characters, and their dynamic with every other character is generally very, very funny and a lot of fun. And aside from that, it's also confirming a few weird things from the comics that haven't yet appeared on screen, like Batmite as a literal interdimensional imp that stands Batman, and also Dollman from the Freedom Fighters. But there is one point where I have to contend as get on a nerd soapbox here. There's a point where he mentions Matter Eater Lad, who If you're a fan of the comics, you're aware that Matter Eater Lad is from the Legion of Superheroes in the year like 3000 something, and Chris certainly is not. So either Peacemaker went to the future, or Matter Eater Lad went to the past, or everybody's just all entirely aware of the fact that there's a team of superheroes in the future. Gonna need a little bit of explanation, but anyway, will any of those characters actually show up? I kind of doubt it, but a person can hope. And of course, it's also proving that DC does not need to be dark. The fun and campy part of DC, the part that takes itself a little less seriously, but still tells a good story, that builds flawed characters addressing their own failures and growing, there's a lot of power there. And that's basically most of their catalog, aside from Batman and Superman, and it's a lot more varied and interesting than those two, much as I love the two of them. That also has me wondering just what the Butterflies even are. Aliens, sure, but Starro was an alien that was grounded in comics lore, and really well executed. Kevin McGuire, a penciler for Justice League International back in the day, pondered on Twitter that if they might be Martians, and if Clemson Murn might actually be Martian Manhunter. I'd guess that's less likely, but man, if that actually ended up happening, I would be down. I would be way down for there to be more weird DC characters like Judo Master to end up showing up in the series. But all in all, Peacemaker is unique unto itself. A really truly brilliant creation and social satire on multiple levels, even of the superhero genre itself. Unique even in DC. I'm hoping that this means that we'll at least get to revisit some of the other offbeat or really unique DC properties. I already got Doom Patrol. I'd like to see them revisit Swamp Thing, maybe Animal Man. But at this point, right now, I'm enjoying Peacemaker, watching him fumble his way through trying to reform. Thanks everybody for watching. We'll see you again next week.